I know it's hard to predict, but what do you see for the future?
Well, I do not want to give the exact time. It's like 3 years, 2 years, but it's coming soon. It's not, like a next generation. It's like very soon, because you can see this speed. Right now it's like 20 to 30,000 people quitting the party, and they got organizations every day. And it's growing, they're like, it will be like exponential growing. So we can see that very fast.
So this makes the party very, very worried.
Yeah, they are. Because they have like a bottom line, because they said anybody, okay, like foreign investors or the so-called democratic movement activists, if you get away from Falun Gong, then we are going to do this deal and that deal with you. You're going to get a lot of money or get a lot of opportunity to make money in China, things like that. So they're buying people off, because the only thing they want to do is don't do anything with Falun Gong, So that is their bottom line right now.
Well, how successful are they?
Well, they have been very successful in certain part. And we have seen, as I mentioned, those big companies go to China to help the Communist Party to do those persecution, and build up firewalls, telling that kind of people, what they are doing, and also sending the money into the Communist hands itself is helping them, because they have the resource, to pay those policemen to buy all kind of, weapons, that kind of things, on persecution and monitor people. That all cost a lot of money. So it's being helped by those capitalists from, America and many other countries. So they have been quite successful, but the truth is the truth. If we know the truth, if we practice it, and if we spread it, and then we will finally, get it over.
You made a very interesting comment earlier in our private conversation about the importance of conscience. And that came after a discussion of how seemingly it is that many people in China now have lost their conscience and are pursuing material things, as more or less as it's happened in the United States. Would you give us your thoughts on that, please?
I think that's a very disturbing, if you look at this situation, because if you go to China, you would see, many people in China, they just don't care about anything else except money. They want material wealth. And I have read some reports, at which some people want to commit suicide. They climb onto the top of the building. They want to jump. Hundreds of, observers were there waiting to look at the scene, because it's going to be like a movie, Sometimes when they are, the suicidal, hesitated, that other people would tell them to jump. What are you waiting for? We want to see that. So that's like morality is like corrupted to such extent, conscience would be like out of their mind. What's that for? What's that, why do we want that? Same thing, if you look at those capitalists, who goes to China to invest money, they don't care about the persecution of Falun Gong. They know, they think that those people who practice truthfulness, compassion, or forbearance are a band of nuts. Why don't you like to make money? That's all.
I understand. I would like to say, however, these people that they call capitalists are not really, they're collectivists. Just because they have a lot of money doesn't make them capitalists. But you're certainly right on that.
Well,
and
maybe I got this notion from the communist propaganda. Capitalists are all bad, things like that.
Right.
Anyway,
those are not capitalists.
Whatever who they are, but they went to China to give those Communist Party the money, and then for themselves to make money. So that's a lot of help for their.
Well, how do you compare this with the traditional Chinese morality?
Well, we have the word compassion in China since the very beginning of China's culture. It has been advised that any ruler, in China should have compassion to people, to the mass. If you don't have that, you're not deserved to be on that position. You should be toppled. You should be thrown away by people if you don't have the compassion. But the Communist Party, they never regard themselves as compassionate. They just want to, stay in absolute control. So that is why they have done everything possible to destroy the Chinese culture. So if you go to China, a lot of things have been lost. A lot of them, like the way of dealing with people, compassion, tolerance, and the reasonable, way of thinking. They don't have those anymore.
So they're the product of the communist system themselves.
Exactly.
And yet, young people like you, newer generations, have it for some reason. How did that happen?
Well, I think, this is, come from the practice. Because before I got to know Falun Gong, of course, I want to, make a better life. Everybody has the right to do that. But I would think myself in the first place, because how I can benefit. Anything I encounter, I would have this thought. But right now, I was thinking, what is the way of justice? How, people should maintain a good society, a good interpersonal relationship. How people can benefit from, be nice to each other. This is a totally different way of thinking. And then we know, the true reasons behind that. And we believe that will bring the human society, and then the future will be bright, if everybody knows it and practices it. So that's 3 words: truthfulness, compassion, forbearance. That is what we have been practicing, since I got to know Falun Gong.
Well, that's very encouraging to think that these principles can spring from the heart and from the soul.
That's right.
And not necessarily from the traditions.
Well, it is. I would say, most of the part, is from the traditions, because, Confucianism taught Chinese people to be tolerant, to be compassionate, and those Taoist schools taught people to be truthful. Also those Buddhist schools, they taught about compassion. So all these essence all exist through the history. So, what we have in practice is like, we practice all of them, So that is why, as I mentioned, there has not a single case in which Falun Gong practitioners use violence, fight back against the Communist Party in the last 7.5 years. That is because we have been practicing this from the heart, bottom of our hearts. And then we comply to these principles all the time.
And yet you're not just completely passive. You stand for what you believe in.
Yeah, that's right.
And you confront the system.
That's right.
And you're there 10,000 strong if necessary to let your views be known.
That's right.
That's a little different than some people who just feel that they should quietly accept the system.
No. We are not accepting it, because what we did in the first 4 years was giving them a chance to correct their wrongdoings. If they refuse to give up, then we are going to do something else, But of course, still being peaceful, but that will result differently. So that's what happened.
What concluding message would you like to give to our viewers?
I think the persecution on Falun Gong in China is not like a Chinese issue. It's like issue of human being. Everybody should look into that, because we have been practicing the principles is what really a human being needs. If everybody practices that, the human society will become, much, much better. And what the Communist Party has been doing is not only damaging to the Chinese people, but also to the people in the world. And if you look, study the history, then you can see, how they exploited the violence to other countries, and how they use Chinese people as hostage to, hijack those resources. And if you just sit around doing nothing, then we'll see this tragedy happen over and over again, and we'll finally get to you. And as for the Falun Gong orphanage, because it has just came out this year, this is like a new format of crime, never happened in human history. And if we see this still doing nothing, then I think the human being will be over. So everybody should stand up to say no to the Communist Party, to stay away from it. And if the Communist Party collapses in China, then it would be great for Chinese people and for the world as a whole.
请问曲中人，谁 痴迷中。生归正道，江山抚清明。苍生归正道，江山抚清明。